There was a strange wailing sound coming from the room next to mine. At first, I thought the guy in there had sneaked in a pet and it was crying to be let out to pee or something. Yet it never stopped. Like ever. An animal at least has to draw breath now and then, but this noise was thin, high-pitched, and endless. It wasn't loud enough that people in other rooms could hear it, but it pervaded mine, making a perpetual background noise as I went about my days. I assumed it must be some kind of game sound effect since his TV was pushed up against the wall we shared, but when we had a power cut and the noise kept going, I knew I was wrong. It was there when I left for class each morning and still going when I got back to dorms. It even lasted into the night, cutting through my consciousness as I tried to sleep. Eventually, after a few days of trying to be civil and dropping hints, when I saw my neighbor in the corridor, I'd had enough. I headed out in my pajamas and banged a fist on his door. It took a few minutes for him to answer. I put that down to it being 2 a.m. When he answered, however, he was fully clothed and all his lights were on. And I do mean all. Every bulb blazed, including a desk crammed full of lamps. His bookshelf had been cleared of books and filled instead with burning candles. From his ceiling light, he had hung a glitter ball, reflecting yet more light around the room. A large halogen flashlight dangled from his hand like a cudgel.
What?
He demanded. I was momentarily lost for words.
What, man?
I refocused on my neighbor. He looked haggard, like he had not slept in ages. His hair was unkempt and his sweatshirt had food stains all down the front, as if it had not been washed in so long that fresh spills had covered several layers of old. When I met his eyes, I saw hosts of broken capillaries that had turned the whites almost completely red. There's a noise coming from in here, dude. It's making it impossible for me to sleep. I've tried to be nice, but I hit my limit. Could you, I don't know, turn it off or something? I looked around trying to figure out where the noise could be coming from. He stepped in my way.
I don't hear anything.
Dude, it's definitely coming from in here. It got louder when you opened the door. Come on, man, don't make this a big thing. I've got class at 9 a.m. Just shut off whatever it is and we'll say no more about it. He narrowed his eyes at me.
There's no noise, dickhead.
Then he shut the door in my face. Wow, nice, I said to the scratched up wood. Real nice. With no other recourse, I went back to bed, resolving to complain to campus authorities in the morning. I got a couple of hours sleep, which wasn't nearly enough for my heavy class schedule, so I filed a complaint online via the website Performa before heading to the library that afternoon. When I finally got back to my dorm hours later, it was to find a commotion going on outside. A crowd had gathered. I pushed my way through to see my neighbor being loaded into the back of a police car. He thrashed and fought, kicking out with his legs and throwing his head back since his hands were cuffed behind his back. An ambulance stood nearby, paramedics loading someone on a stretcher into the back. What the hell is going on? I asked of no one in particular.
He beamed campus security with a flashlight,
said an eager blonde girl, snapping the scene rapidly with her phone.
Broke the guy's skull.
What? Why?
They got a complaint about him, and when they came to investigate, the guy went totally crazy. Locked himself in his room and refused to come out.
No!
My neighbor's voice floated over the heads of the crowd.
No! You have to let me stay here. If I'm not here, it'll kill me. It's scared of the dark. I have to stay here. Please, you have to...
His words were cut off by the squad car door. The crowd took a while to disperse after the ambulance and police departed. We were let back into the building after that, and I cautiously approached my room. My neighbor's was strung with yellow police tape, and though the door was closed, I could see the lock had been forced and the handle dangled at an odd angle. I paused for a moment, wondering why he had resorted to violence so swiftly. I barely knew the guy. I think he told me his name at the beginning of the semester, but it had long since tumbled out of my head, pushed by lecture notes, essay preparation, and manifold other things more important to my daily life. He'd always been so nondescript as to be practically invisible before that stupid noise started. Certainly not someone I would have imagined clubbing a security guard badly enough to put them in the hospital. My curiosity got the better of me and I nudged his door open with my foot. Sure enough, all the lights, lamps, and candles were still there, though everything had been switched off or doused. His room was oddly still, the air heavy with silence. My breathing seemed inordinately loud, and I fled to my own room, muttering about my cowardice as I slammed the door and switched on the radio I had started using to drown out the wailing noise. There was no wailing now, but I felt more comfortable with the music than that oppressive silence. My sleep that night was no better than when the noise had kept me awake. I stared at the ceiling for hours, something prickling the back of my mind, never clear enough for me to figure out what it was, but off-putting enough that sleep did not come easily. I kept feeling like something was wrong, the way you do when you leave the house and then wonder an hour later whether you remember to close the garage door. The next morning, I was more exhausted than ever. I went down to the campus coffee shop for something highly caffeinated and a breakfast burrito. Whilst waiting in line, I opened my phone to check my emails. One of my professors has a horrible habit of canceling classes at last minute, leaving us to arrive at the stupidly early hour she had previously set, only to find a note on the door. The way I was feeling, I kind of hoped she had pulled this again. There was no email from her, but while I was distracted, the line had moved forward and someone tapped me on the shoulder from behind.
Hey, buddy.
What? I turned to see a girl with electric blue hair and more piercings than I could count. She gestured at the space in front of me, and I clumsily apologized before moving forward. Sorry.
No problem. Hey, didn't I see you yesterday when the police were here? I swear you were standing, right behind me.
Oh? I said vaguely, not really interested in the conversation. Yeah, the guy who got arrested is my neighbor. He lived in the room next to mine. Fucking psychopath. Her face twisted up in sympathy.
Pretty awful what happened, huh?
I guess. Is the security guard okay?
That guy? Oh yeah, he'll be fine. I meant about your neighbor.
Huh?
Didn't you hear?
Her expression switched to one of salacious anticipation, the way people look when they see on Twitter that their least favorite celebrity has been outed as a pedophile and they get to publicly insult them without reprisal.
He's dead.
I nearly dropped my phone. What?
Cut his own throat in his cell at the police station yesterday evening. There's a big stink about why they let a disturbed kid keep a knife on him after being arrested. It's all over social media. #WhyNoFrisk, dude.
Wow. I didn't know what to think. He really did that?
It's totally messed up.
Yeah. I pushed my hair from my eyes, feeling sweat suddenly prickling in my hairline. Messed up. Something about what she had told me made me really uneasy, and I don't just mean the fact that my neighbor had committed suicide. Like I said, I didn't know much about him, so I couldn't judge whether he had seemed suicidal or whether this was out of character for him. His behavior since all this started had been weird, so maybe him offing himself was an inevitable end to his story and I was just a bit player in the third act. No, something else rankled me. Some nebulous sensation that I couldn't name. It felt like something about this situation was amiss, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. In class, the other students were talking about the assault, the arrest, and the suicide. It had unsettled everyone. Deaths on college campuses aren't uncommon, but ours was a small institution, so word spread quickly and sank deep. By the end, I could remember nothing out of what the professor had said, but gossip from the other students around me clanged around inside my head like church bells tolling for my neighbor's funeral. I checked my phone when class let out. A grim curiosity. I typed #WhyNoFrisk into Twitter and discovered the girl in the coffee shop had been right. People beyond our college were talking about it too. Why had the guy not been searched for weapons before being put in a cell? Why had police been so negligent? Why were they insisting they had properly followed protocol when his death proved it was a lie? I lingered on a tweet thread by someone from the local township who was accusing the authorities of deliberately leaving my neighbor armed in the hopes he would kill himself because of some crackpot theory about boomers trying to kill off Generation Z. Others joined in below, some claiming the knife had gone missing, and others saying they'd heard there was no knife at all and that he'd been found with his throat cut but no weapons nearby. I turned off my phone at that point and shoved it deep into my pocket, unable to stomach anymore. My dorm was eerily quiet when I got back. Everyone was locked in their own rooms, either working or processing the death or whatever. My brain hurt, so I headed upstairs at a speed that suggested a couple of hellhounds were nipping at my heels. Outside my neighbor's door, someone had put a folding chair and other students had brought tiny bouquets of flowers and condolence cards to leave on it. I figured the college faculty would give it all to his parents later, but for now, it was apparently the way some people had chosen to process this unusual and tragic event. I stood staring at it for a moment. The door behind the chair was still half open, the way I'd left it last night. I squinted into the darkness. It seemed different than before, though I could not say why. Less thick, if that makes any sense. I shook my head and moved off to my own room. The sun was setting by the time I had showered. I filled the little contraband electric kettle I kept hidden in my room with water from the bathroom faucet and set it to boil while I poured ramen noodles into a mug. I was just reaching for a fork I kept behind the books on my shelf when I heard it. A thin, jittery wailing. It sounded like it was coming from outside my window, but when I looked out at the last streaks of light on the horizon, nobody was there. It must be more tired than I thought, I muttered, resolving to eat my ramen and then go straight to bed. Maybe sleep would quiet my addled mind. But the wailing didn't stop. In fact, it got louder. As it did so, it stopped jittering so much and became a choking, sobbing sound. I went to the window and threw it open to look out, but there was absolutely nobody around. When I shut it again, the wailing was even louder, like the source was in the room with me. I whirled around trying to get a bead on where it might be coming from and nearly fell over in shock. A little girl stood in the middle of my room. She was tiny and skinny in a loose-fitting white dress and black buckle shoes. Her thin calves were not big enough to keep her socks up, and they pulled around her ankles, revealing dozens of livid red cuts that crisscrossed her legs until they disappeared under her skirt. Her arms were the same, culminating in huge gouges in her wrist, as though someone had scooped out chunks of flesh, revealing tendons and severed veins that flopped against her skin as she moved. One side of her head had been stove inwardly, leaving a bloody crater in her skull and soaking her hair so thoroughly with blood that it was impossible to tell what color it was supposed to be. She stammered through her tears, one arm raised to press against her eyes as if she was frightened to let anyone see her cry. Through her torso, I could barely see my desk.
Bad things happen in the dark.
What the? Oh my god.
I don't like the dark.
She wailed, elongating the vowel into a noise I recognized all too well. She dropped her arm and I stared at the empty, carved-out wounds where her eyes should have been. Her wailing hit a pitch that made my ears hurt. I stumbled backwards, ironically away from the light switch, and hit the wall with my back. I slid down it a little, temples throbbing at the noise. It wasn't like normal sound. It seemed to dig into my brain, radiating inward until I felt like my head might explode. I screwed my eyes shut.
Don't shut your eyes in the dark. Never shut your eyes in the dark. The dark is where the bad things happen. He likes the dark. He took my eyes so I could only see the dark. He knew I was scared, so he took the light away. Please bring back the light.
I opened my eyes and gasped. Outside, the sun had completely set now, and the corner of my room seemed to pulse with shifting shadows. Something silvery glittered in the center, winking in and out, there and then not.
He's here! He's here!
The little girl's voice hit a new peak.
Please, bring back the light. I don't like the dark. It comes in the dark.
The shadows coalesced into something vaguely human. In one hand, it gripped a knife. It turned an opaque face in my direction, limbs contorting in a parody of a walk. Its other hand jerked out, reaching for me.
I don't like the dark. Bad things happen in the dark.
Gritting my teeth, I vaulted over the bed and hit the light switch. The bulb flared to life. It wasn't a very powerful bulb, but it was enough to bring pallid light into the room. In an instant, the corner was empty. No knife-wielding, shady figure anywhere. I whirled to look at the center of the room, but the little girl was gone too. At least, her body was.
I don't like the dark. Bad things
Her voice was more distant with the light on, but I could still hear it. I can still hear it now. I turned on my bathroom light and left the door open, which seemed to make her even quieter. But her voice never really goes away. It's still going now, even though it's past dawn. I'm not sure what I should do. I could tell someone on campus, but it sounds completely crazy. A little ghost girl and a something else are haunting my room? I think they used to haunt my neighbor until the shadowy something murdered him. Who would believe me? It sounds like something out of a bad horror movie. All I know is I'm buying some more lamps and flashlights tomorrow. A lot of lamps and flashlights. And I'm looking into whether I can transfer my credits to another school.